A New York man was arrested after his employer reported that he had provided a plagiarized COVID-19 vaccine card, according to the New York State Police. David R. Kemp, a 24-year-old of Eaton, New York, was charged with a second-degree possession of a forged instrument, which qualifies for a Class D felony in the state. The unauthorized use of a government agency's seal is a federal crime. A news release from the New York State Police detailed the arrest and charge, but did not identify the private company based in Marcy, New York, that reported Kemp to the Department of Health Vaccination Complaint and Investigation Team. Family, it's not that serious. I'm not going to hold you. It's not that serious. And this young man could face up to 7 years in prison for possessing this fake COVID-19 vaccine card. I mean, it's ways that we can do this shit right. You don't want to do it where it gets you in trouble. You don't want to do it just to keep a job or just to get a job and get yourself in trouble. You have to start looking into these things. That's why you have people that's using their religious ideology to try to get a pass card, as I'll call it, a card so that they can get a pass. You might want to look into things like that before you start getting into it with the federal government. See, when you're dealing with the federal government, it seems like it's an innocent little crime. But when you get to dealing with that government seal, that's what steps that crime up to a felony. Because just as they said in here, it brings it to a felony D in New York City just by you having that seal on there. And that's what people don't look at. They just look at it like, oh, well, I'll just buy this piece of paper from whoever's selling it illegally and I'll use it and give it to my employer. But if they look at it and deem that things looks a little fishy and call in on you and find out that you have an illegal card, you could have yourself in some big trouble for what, probably $100, $150 that you pay for it. And then they gonna want your source. And knowing most people, they'll give up their source to save their own ass. So even if if you're thinking about peddling them, that's not a good idea. If you're thinking about buying them, that's not a good idea. You have to be a little more responsible for your own actions. I mean, you know when you're doing something wrong. You gotta start looking at things and be like, man, I know this ain't right. And you weigh it out on a scale and think about how much trouble can you actually get into. And that's why I'm talking about the innocence of having a piece of paper and you thinking it's nothing and not paying attention to it has a government seal on it, which puts you in a higher bracket of breaking the law. In New York City, it definitely puts you in the felony category. And anytime you can get up to 7 years, and he gave it to his employer. So we know he was getting that illegal paper just so that he could be able to say, hey, I can still work, boss. But his boss turned him in because the paper probably didn't look up to par. And now look, now he's facing time in prison, federal time. So people, don't get yourself caught up in that BS. If it comes down to you making a decision of whether you need to do it or don't do it, that's something you have to think about on your own. But don't take that illegal route. We live in a different time now where it's easy to find out if your paperwork is authentic or not. So don't let yourself get caught up for $100 thing and it turns into thousands of dollars worth of damage. You spent $100 to get it. Now you doing 3 or 7 years in jail. Look how much money you just missed out on just because you wanted to, quote unquote, beat the system. So we got to be careful when it comes to beating the system. You got to take words from old Snoop Dogg. I don't break the law, but I will bend it. And with that, I'm going to say this is the new Zenu. North, east, west, south. Unite from every alley in Cali, intersection and back street. Subscribe to the channel and hit the thumbs up on your way out the door.